Hello everyone, Carol here at Oak House Journals, and as you can see I'm doing another prompt for Junk Journal January 2024. All the information is in the description box below the video. The prompt today is neutral, so I'm flashing through here some papers I've lifted out of my stash, hopefully to hit that prompt. And I've got a vintage receipt there which I plan to use on my page. But first I'm creating a little hinge at the top, measuring it against the top of that vintage receipt, and again just measuring the width, trimming down the top of that vintage receipt and gluing it to that little hinge. And you'll see why I'm doing this in a moment. So just gluing it in place there. Little burnish with my bone folder and a bit more glue on the back, because the vintage receipt top or header is bigger than the little hinge that I created out of some coffee stained paper. And just folding it over and trimming away the edges so that it's all neat and tidy. So as you can see, I'm working on a typewritten page. I don't want that showing, so I've got the page from a vintage notebook. I've just ripped off the page so all the torn pieces from the ring binding are at the top, and I'm just coming in here with my glue book to put some glue on the page that this prompt will go on, just using a Pritt stick, as you can see. And then I'm popping in my piece of vintage notebook paper, gorgeous colour, smoothing it down, and I'm just going to leave this to dry to one side. And whilst that is drying, I'm just going to finish off this hinge, which also was to one side drying. Here are all the papers that I'm going to use, and that's the lower portion from that vintage receipt that I trimmed the top off. And as you can see, it's still slightly too wide for my hinge. So I'm going to go in here with my guillotine. Yep, here it is. And just trim down both sides so that I can get it on my page. Now my vintage notebook on my journal page is dry, so I'm bringing it in and I'm just trimming off the excess. So there it is on the left hand side. There's my vintage receipt now trimmed to size, and there's the topper. Here I'm very quickly bringing in my papers and just having a play, seeing how I want to arrange them, and I've got quite a nice variety to play with. Having made up my mind how I want them to go, I'm just inking around the edge of the topper piece with a little vintage photo distress ink, measuring here just underneath the ornate heading there where to place some eyelets, and I've brought in my crocodile here to punch some holes. And as you can see in the top left hand corner, I've got some eyelets, and I'll be setting a couple of those in the holes that I've just punched out with the crocodile. So here I'm lifting out an eyelet, popping it in the hole, using the crocodile and giving it a good press to cinch the back of the eyelet. That's my second one going in, and again double-handed cinch to set the eyelet. So here I am, I've got all my papers lined up and torn, and I'm just putting a bit of glue behind my topper. I've glued the back of the topper to the journal page, and as you can see I've just layered up my papers so that I have a small portion of each one underneath the topper. A little more glue, and that's the final one done. A little smooth down with my bone folder. Now this was a small portion that had off to one side which I decided to use. It was a piece where I was playing with some texture paste and some Treasure Gold wax, and it was only a tiny piece, just roughly tearing away the edges there, and I decided it looks quite nice on top of everything, so I'm going to use that as my little focal element on this very neutral page. Decide I want a little bit more embellishment, so on the portion of the vintage receipt that I used right at the very bottom, there was a date, so I've roughly torn that out with my fingernails, giving it an ink and a little bit of glue, and I'm popping it half on and half off a piece of handmade paper. I found a little piece of Asian text, so I'm just faffing around here trying to decide where I want to put it, and I decide underneath that little piece of texture paste design paper is the place for it to go, so a dab of glue to set it in place, a little bit more to finish it off. Here I got my little scrap pot from off the windowsill, and I knew that I had a piece of Swiss dot netting or tulle in there, and I decided I'm going to use that to be my embellishment on the top of the page. Wasn't quite long enough, so I cut it and secured both of the ends with a little bit of washi, and as you can see I'm gluing everything down now on top of my stack of papers, and just trimming away the edges of the voile. So there we have it, that's my finished piece for the Prompt Neutral. A very, very simple piece. I'm almost ashamed to show this one, but I have decided that all the leftover pieces of the same paper I will use for another prompt, and that prompt is prompt 10 layers, which will be on the opposite side of the page to the one that I've just worked on. So thank you so much everybody for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed seeing me play with this one, and I do hope you will join me for the next prompt in this Junk Journal January 2024 series. So until then, bye bye now.